Before I proceed to the main portion of the video, this is an official copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances are made for fair use for the purposes such as criticism, commenting, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing, nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Hello, my name is John Sayre. I am majoring in aeronautical engineering technology, which is all about the manufacturing and inspection of aircraft to ensure that they are airworthy. This image is of the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. Its counterpart, the Boeing B-29, is coming up next. The reason I've included these is because they are two of my favorite aircraft in history, and they are both produced by the Boeing company. Here is a brief history of Boeing. The organization was created in 1916 by William Boeing, after him and his Navy officer built a single-engine plane. The Boeing company has been on the forefront of aviation development and advancement ever since. The main aircraft manufacturing rival for Boeing is Airbus, a French-based organization. Recently, Boeing has expanded into a competitive edge to compete with SpaceX in the development of spacefaring vehicles. I want to work for Boeing because it's one of the best large-scale aircraft manufacturing companies. My major, as I've said before, is aeronautical engineering technology, and coupled with my time spent in the Air Force means I have spent the past 3.5 years studying aircraft components and how to properly repair and replace them using the proper inspection techniques and learning the many, many exciting ways of how pilots still find ways to break the aircraft despite our best efforts. If it weren't for pilot error, my major wouldn't exist. On a side note for future reference, I'll probably be making a video discussing the importance of space travel and developing our space system capabilities so that we are able to colonize and expand upon our previous and existing space technologies and look towards the future, colonize the moon, colonize Mars, and such. Because I believe it's really important for the human race that we do that. My goal is to be a manufacturing engineer within Boeing. My specific role would be translating the technical drawings of the design engineers into real-life, three-dimensional components of a real aircraft and ensure that it is technically plausible and realistic while also incorporating factors like cost, practicality, and just how the part would fit into the larger aircraft. Now I will begin the organizational profile section of this presentation. I mentioned earlier that Boeing has had a long-standing rivalry with Airbus, and in recent years, they've expanded to include SpaceX as a rival in a new and ever-changing privately funded space race. These rivalries require Boeing to create the best and most advanced aircraft at the most affordable rates for airlines in order to outproduce and outsell the competition. The other very important thing that Boeing must do as a company is ensure that the aircraft they produce are up to maintenance standards and the corresponding airworthiness directives, which are a government-regulated means of ensuring the aircraft are of good quality, overseen by the FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration. Quick fun fact, originally with this next part, I wanted to make it the way drug companies rattle off the side effects to drugs, but instead I'm just going to go for the slow and methodical approach. Enjoy! Key components to the manufacturing process include, but are not limited to, performing operational checkout of aircraft prior to and during pre-flight, maintain aircraft historical records at all times, perform activities prior to flight status and final inspection, and daily maintenance of completed experimental aircraft or major modifications to experimental aircraft, inspect and or perform bench and flight line operational checkout and inspections, troubleshooting, adjustment, and repair of electrical and electronic systems. Inspect the calibration, adjustment, troubleshooting, repair, and modification of electronic test equipment used exclusively by production and at times may be required to inspect the calibration, adjustment, troubleshooting, repair, and modification of other electronic test equipment as directed. Needless to say, there's a lot that goes into the process of verifying that an aircraft is actually airworthy. I could go on. Boeing, in recent years, has faced two very large and very public critical dilemmas. The first and more serious of the two is the MCAS system failure that resulted in the crashes of flights Lion Air 610 and Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302. They are one dilemma because of the ineffective communication technique that Boeing attempted to use in addressing the first crash. This is a still from the press release after the second airline crash of Ethiopian Airline Flight 302 of the then CEO of Boeing at the time, Dennis Mulligan, addressing public concerns regarding the cause of the failures and what happened, and he would go on to be pressured into retiring and resign as CEO of Boeing after this. The other crucial dilemma that Boeing faces is the stagnation of aircraft demand due to the spread of COVID-19. Over the course of several Senate hearings, it was revealed that Boeing had had a flaw in its MCAS landing system that caused the first flight, Flight 610, to take a sudden and unexpected dive that it did not recover from, claiming all 157 souls on board. Boeing then pressured the government in charge of the airworthiness directives, the FAA, to not identify the MCAS system by name as the fault in the new operations manual that they were creating in response to the crash. The result was the same event happening for Ethiopian Airline Flight 302, where it takes a sudden dive, and all 189 souls on this aircraft were lost as well, leading to a total of 346 souls lost, and a scandal. Boeing has had its production of all current flight-capable and approved aircraft grounded by the global pandemic. Boeing was distracted by its ongoing crisis with the MCAS system at the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. This distraction caused them to have to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic less prepared than they would be otherwise. Despite this, Boeing has a handle on the crisis, and 27,000 employees are preparing to return to work once the crisis ends. Boeing made several organizational mistakes that resulted from using ineffective communication techniques. Boeing used bounded rationality to convince the government to not include the term MCAS in the operations manual instead of intuitive decision-making, which would dictate that MCAS was the most relevant chunk of information that needed to be added to the new operation manual. And the result was another crash that cost more lives lost. Regarding the pandemic, Boeing was still in the midst of the MCAS scandal and Senate hearings when COVID-19 began spreading. Boeing has used the lull in aviation demand to prepare for and plan for future operations, and, as I've already stated, has 27,000 workers on standby, ready to resume working at the main Boeing manufacturing plant in Washington State as soon as the corona crisis passes enough to allow them to go. Now, these are serious dilemmas that Boeing has had to deal with. And as a company, they dug themselves into the hole with the first dilemma. Despite this, I still want to work for this company. To reiterate, Boeing is a competition-based organization, and I personally love competing. In recent years, Boeing has begun to compete with SpaceX, and it would be a personal dream come true of mine if I were to get involved in that space race and be able to help with the final frontier. And finally, I have experience working with broken organizations and trying to build something better, and that's something I'd enjoy continue doing in the future. And I think Boeing needs that a little bit right now. Hey guys, thanks for making it this far in the video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comment section. Please like, subscribe, and follow. Ring the bell for notifications, and watch some of my other videos about the soccer team that I made that was really good. And then our one good season.